appreciate all that. You're so good with housekeeping because I always forget to say it's being recorded. So thank you all for joining us again today for the April Mo DDD and U Lunch and Learn webinar. We have another information-packed webinar ready to share with you guys. Again, these Lunch and Learn webinars are meant to provide these webinars are meant geared toward families and individuals to help share information with them that will be of a great impact to them. Today's topic again is the Missouri Assistive Technology. And David, I didn't realize that you guys had dropped off the word project. So if I happen to say Assistive Technology Project, forgive me. So
I didn't even know I did that. So
okay, all right. So for this webinar, we're going to kick it off with a couple of polling questions that Kat has prepared for us. And after that, those questions, we're going to get started with introductions. We're going to hear a quick overview of Missouri Assistive Technology. We'll hear about the various programs at Missouri Assistive Technology. That's why Dave is here today. He's the guru of all of that. So we're also going to talk about how assistive technology enhances daily life for everyone. We're going to touch on the annual Power Up conference that they hold, and if time permits, we'll go ahead and address questions from the participants. So let's go ahead and get started. I think we have our first poll coming up. We just want to know if you are familiar with the Missouri Assistive Technology. And I think there was supposed to be a poll that popped up, but I'm not seeing it. We just kind of want to get a general feel for the audience to know if you guys have heard about it, familiar with it, maybe access some of the programs. And Kat, if that's not working, it's not a problem. We're going to move on to the next one unless you want me to wait.
Go ahead.
Okay. So you guys can drop it in the chat if you want, thumbs up, whatever you want to use. The next question we had was if you were aware of the various programs that Missouri Assistive Technology has to offer. There are a few. I know you guys have been around for a while. We've accessed you guys in the past for my family. And the last one was, do you or the person or people that you support use assistive technology? So we're going to go ahead and get started with introductions. And as you guys, if you've been on this webinar before, you probably know a little bit about me. And some of you may even be familiar with David. He's done a lot of webinars too. But I am Lisa Nothouse, and I work for the Division of Developmental Disabilities as the Supporting Families Lead. My husband and I have 2 adult children and 3 grandchildren now. Our youngest daughter has a developmental disability, and she lives at home with us. She actually is receiving services through the Division and our local TCM entity. So I've been involved in the DD systems in some fashion for the past 30 years at least. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I feel like I've been around forever. I'm going to turn it over to David now because he's got a lot of great information to share with us. And I'm going to pass the box to you, David, and you can control the slides.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's just make sure we can get them up here quick. All right. Okay, I can't say I'm really familiar with WebEx, so we need to do the share screen.
Well, at the very top of above the blue tab where it says introductions, you'll see the number 6, and you should have an arrow left and right.
Honestly, I'm not seeing those.
Okay. You just tell me and well, maybe, let's see. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm also working off an iPad, which can be a little weird on these things.
Okay, I can do the slides for you. So whenever you're ready, let me know. Okay.
You know what? That's a fine example of teamwork, and that's what assistive technology often boils down to. So, well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm David Baker. I'm Director of Missouri Assistive Technology, and it's certainly a pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to speak in particular with individuals and with families about assistive technology. We try as hard as we can to reach everybody, and so this is a great opportunity to kind of expand everybody's understanding of who we are and what we do and how we might be able to assist in your particular situation. So if we can move on to the next slide, we have 30 minutes here. So I really want to kind of dig in mostly on our programs and services to get that information into everybody's heads. But to give just a little bit of background, Missouri Assistive Technology is what is known as a State Assistive Technology Act program. So essentially what that means is that we are responsible for covering the entire state of Missouri and helping people understand, access, and acquire assistive technology, which we do through a variety of different means, which we're going to talk about here a little bit later on. The other reason I bring this to your attention is the fact that if you move out of Missouri, it's always useful to keep in mind that there's an equivalent of us in every single state, plus the territories like Puerto Rico and Guam if you move outside the continental United States. So we have about 30 minutes here today. And so, let's kind of let's move on to the next slide and let's kind of talk a little bit, just a little background on assistive technology itself. There are probably about as many different definitions of assistive technology as there are people attending this call. And I always think it's kind of important to start these conversations and sort of put everybody on the same footing so we kind of are all working off of the same foundation when we have this discussion. So we hear a lot about assistive technology in the disability arena these days. It seems to be increasing. There are more programs, there are more services, there are more funding opportunities. We have more discussions when we have our IEPs or our plans that we develop. And so really what we're talking about when we use the term assistive technology is we're talking about any kind of technology device. It can be the term assistive technology, or it could be mainstream technology, but we're essentially talking about any kind of technology that helps a person with a disability increase, maintain, or improve their functional abilities. So that's a really broad category in terms of all the types of things that fit under this term assistive technology. It's also really important to keep in mind that assistive technology is not just the devices. Really, when we say assistive technology, we're kind of referring to an umbrella term. And so we have the devices, and we also need to make sure that when we have this discussion with family, with friends, with providers, that we're focused on the devices, but we're also focused on the services, because both things go hand in hand in order for somebody to flourish when they get technology and when they're using it. So it's super important to just keep those two things in mind. Services and devices go hand in hand. And services are things like, how's somebody going to be trained on it? How am I going to get it funded? Can I borrow it from somewhere and try it before I make a commitment to funding? And these are all things that we can certainly help you with at Missouri Assistive Technology. So let's move to the next slide and let's get into who we are and what we do. And we will start by talking about our demonstration centers around the state of Missouri. We don't kind of have this innate built-in understanding of what assistive technology is out there. A lot of times we come to it at different stages in our life, and we need to kind of have some place that we can go and we can learn about it. And so part of what we do is we operate a series of demonstration centers around the state. Right now we have 12 of them. Most of them are located in centers for independent living, and they are spread out. So Cape Girardeau, Springfield, Kirksville, St. Joseph, Kansas City area. So they're spread out throughout the state. And the whole idea behind the demonstration centers is so that you have someplace locally that you can go to and you can sit down with somebody who has a background in assistive technology. You can kind of talk through the whole world of assistive technology, and then hopefully also spend some time trying some devices, comparing and contrasting the devices that you're trying, getting hooked up with programs, just kind of think of the demonstration centers as your gateway to assistive technology. And so at the very end, I'll show our website. And so if you're trying to, if you don't know if there's a demonstration center in close proximity to you, I'll show you where on the website you can find that information. So if we move on to the next slide, this is our loan program called ETC. It's really critically important, especially when we're using public dollars, to make sure that we are getting the right device for the situation. When we start to identify assistive technology, a lot of times we start with a discussion around barriers. What is the barrier that the individual is encountering? And then we sort of narrow down what devices are available out there that might help them address that barrier. But it's really important to make sure that somebody has the ability to try devices in their natural environments before making a final selection. So if I say I'm a college student and I have a disability and I know that my reading load is going to increase, and so I want to see what technology is out there that's going to help me address that larger reading load that I'm going to have. Well, I could borrow several devices out of the ETC program, and then I could try them, make sure that they help me address my barrier, and then later on I can go and I can find funding through the appropriate funding source. So think of the ETC program, or our device loan program, is essentially a large library of assistive devices that can be borrowed to try in various environments for various situations. Everything about ETC is free. We have well over 1,000 devices available through the program. We even pay the cost of the shipping to the location and back to us. We try to work through brick and mortar locations, but we do sometimes loan directly to individuals depending on the situation. But the key thing here is, you want to try devices, you want to try them in natural environments. This is a great way to be able to get your hands on them for various purposes. And we send a lot of devices to school districts, to VR offices, to rehab hospitals, to employers, just people who are trying to match up the right piece of assistive technology for the individual. If we move on to the next slide, this is another service that we have throughout the state of Missouri, and this is our device Re-Utilization centers across the state. There, a lot of times there are those things that you need, and maybe it's too cumbersome to try to get them funded, or you need them today so you can do something tomorrow. And so the device Re-Utilization centers, which I believe right now we have 10 or 11 of them across the state, they are places that take in used durable medical equipment, used assistive technology, they sanitize it, they make sure it's safe, and they put it back out in the community, most often for free. So if I'm looking for maybe an extra wheelchair that I could, transport easily, or a bath bench, or a hospital bed, or maybe even an augmentative communication device, then I would want to be familiar with the device Re-Utilization programs. And so we have the centers, and then another option that we have is what we call Swap and Shop, which is a service that is on our website. And so Swap and Shop, sometimes people have paid out of pocket for a piece of assistive technology, and they want a few dollars, or they want to match it up with just the right family or something like that. So Swap and Shop is like a classified ad service for used durable medical equipment and assistive technology devices. Like I said a second ago, augmentative communication devices is an example. So these are great things to be kind of put on your radar screen, because you may need something now, or somewhere down the road you need that extra piece of assistive technology. And so you might reach out to the Re-Utilization Center. And I saw that there was a question about where these are located, and I will try to answer that when we get to the website part of this discussion, and I'll show you where you can find the one that's closest to you. If we move on to the next slide, that will be our alternative finance program. And these first things I'm talking about are what, for our federal reporting, is what we call our core services. So, we can introduce you to assistive technology. We can provide you with the ability to borrow it, to try it. We've set up the Re-Utilization centers, but sometimes we can't find the funding that's necessary. So we set up a series of alternative finance programs, as we refer to them. The most and there's several flavors of these programs, but the whole idea behind the state financing activities is to support individuals in purchasing and acquiring assistive technology. And if we move on to the next slide, we're most often thought of for the financial assistance programs with our Show Me Loans programs. And what these are is they are a financial loan, so you do have to pay it back, but they're a great opportunity to, if you're in a position to take out a loan, the low interest, they're extremely low interest. All the decisions on who gets a loan and who doesn't is made by a group of individuals. And then they also take into consideration some of the unique situations that folks have as a result of having a disability, and how that sometimes impacts credit. So the types of things that we fund through the Show Me Loans program, we do a lot of home modifications through this program. We do van adaptations. We do adapted vans themselves, and we do augmentative communication devices. So a lot of different things get funded through this program, and it's a great way, again, like I said, to maybe achieve something today, so you can do something else tomorrow. And it gets tapped into by quite a few folks across the state. But there are two aspects of the Show Me Loans program that I think are a little bit underutilized in Missouri. The first one is our workability component of the Show Me Loans program. And that is to help people be able to purchase equipment needed to work from home or at a remote site. So we start thinking about how COVID has changed how we work, and there may be more opportunities for people with disabilities to become employed. And you're trying to figure out, well, how can I get started, working remotely for this company or that company, or starting my own business? Then a workability loan might be something to consider. We'll fund assistive technology, but it'll also fund some of the other things that an individual may need to get themselves started. And then at the very bottom here of this slide, there are the microloans. And so sometimes somebody needs to get an iPad, and an iPad with an app on it, like, an app to help them read or to help them write, or some kind of assistive app, but you don't have, $300. And so these microloan programs are designed to loan you the money so you can get that device, so you can do what it is that you want to do. And then you pay it back slowly over time. And we work within fixed budgets a lot of times on the Show Me Loans programs. So a lot of opportunities there to utilize these. The other thing that I often point out about Show Me Loans is it's a great way to build credit, and credit is really important. And a lot of times people with disabilities need to build credit because they don't have it, or they're trying to improve it. And we all know that our credit history is always getting checked on, and it impacts us when we go out to buy a car or rent a house or purchase a house or something like that. If we move on to the next slide, a couple of things that I want to make sure are on everybody's radar screen, especially for families that have kids that are school age. And the first one is the Assistive Technology Reimbursement Program. Under IDEA, school districts have a lot of obligations related to how they educate students with disabilities. And one of the things that they are supposed to provide is assistive technologies if it helps the student access the educational curriculum. So the Assistive Technology Reimbursement Program we do in conjunction with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. And if a student has assistive technology written into their IEP, and they are being served by a charter school or a public school, or maybe they're in a state school for the severely disabled, that school can access the Assistive Technology Reimbursement Program to purchase that technology that's written in the IEP. The sooner we can get assistive technology into the hands of students, the more likely it is that they will succeed. So if you have a student that's on an IEP, or you work in a school and your school district is not aware of this program, this is a great thing to bring to their attention to help them connect the dots. We, in any given year, probably around 300 students across the state get helped with this program. Unfortunately, we're kind of winding it down for this school year, but I know we will have it back up and running next school year. So something to kind of keep in the back of your mind, especially if you're a parent and you have a student that has an IEP. The next program is our Kids Assistive Technology program. And right now we are, we're out of funds temporarily here for this program, but we assume there will be some additional ones at the start of the next state fiscal year. But this is a funding source that we refer to as a funding source of last resort, meaning that if you have exhausted every other funding source that's out there, or maybe you've started to put together some funding sources, but they're kind of falling short of your goal, then you might look into the Kids Assistive Technology program. And it can provide funding for assistive technology, for vehicle access modifications, for home access modifications for children under the age of 21. So as we see illustrated here on the right-hand side, this young woman had reached an age where she wanted to be able to bathe independently, but due to her disability, it took a bathroom modification to do that. And we put in some grab bars and a tub cut and a few other things, and she's able to now achieve that goal of bathing independently. And all that was provided through the Kids Assistive Technology program. So again, if you've exhausted every funding source that's out there, then you might keep this on your radar screen. And even though we are temporarily out of funds, we will take applications so that we can reach out to people as quick as possible when the funds do become available again. So if we move on to the next slide, talk really quickly about these three programs. We have three, what I refer to as telecommunications access programs. And so, you know, we all know that the phone and the internet are super critical to our ability to access services, to stay in contact with family and friends, to interact with government, do our banking, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. But sometimes those telecommunications, things like phones and our computers, can be super difficult for individuals with disabilities to be able to access effectively and efficiently. And so we have a Tap for Telephone program, which provides adapted landline phones, which aren't as common as they used to be. But then we also have the Tap for Internet program, which provides computer adaptations. So if you meet the qualifiers, which is a household income under $60,000 for a family of two, and you have a computer and you have internet access, if you need an adapted keyboard or text-to-speech software to help you understand what you're seeing on the screen, or an adaptation to the mouse, you know, lots of different computer adaptations are available through that program. And so, you know, one of the things I often say about Tap for Internet is it's a great program to look into if you're transitioning, say from high school into college, or from college into a job, or if you're a family and you have a student that's going to be transitioning into the sort of that next phase, and they're going to be very reliant on using their computer, then this might be something to look into. And then we also have the version of the telecommunications access program for wireless, so cell phones, iPads, and again, as long as it's tied to telecommunications access, then this might be an option to consider for phones, for tablets and phones that have adaptations that make them accessible to individuals with disabilities. And then this next slide, real quickly here, if any of you have a combined hearing and vision loss, what is sometimes referred to as deafblind, or a family member who has a combined hearing and vision loss, then we have the iCan Connect program, which we operate in Missouri for the FCC, and it provides distance communication tools. So some of the things that you might have seen on the last slide, and the related training, so that individuals who have the combined hearing and vision loss have equal access to the internet, to other communication tools as well. And just wanted to point that out real quick. You know, if you know anybody who has the combined hearing and vision loss, it always surprises me how many people in the state of Missouri do have are qualified under the deafblind program. And so, you know, word of mouth is usually the best way that we get information out to those individuals. So just keep this one in the back of your mind as well. Moving on to the next slide. Just a few more things that we do. It's a real challenge for me to kind of keep all this stuff in 30 minutes, but we do a lot of public awareness. So events like this, where we're talking and trying to help everybody understand what we do and make connections between us and maybe what your goals are in life. Information and referral. You know, again, I said earlier that we don't have this built-in understanding of all these assistive technology tools. So a lot of my conversations with folks start with, I have this situation where, and we will gladly take those calls and emails and start helping you work through the world of assistive technology and making yourself wiser and understanding how all the pieces go together. We do a lot of training to school districts, to employers, to service providers about how to look at assistive technology, what types of devices are out there. And then we do a lot of technical assistance where we work with school districts and agencies to kind of help them integrate assistive technology into their services. One thing we're spending a lot of time focusing in on these days is what we refer to as ICT access, you know, making the digital world as accessible as the physical world. And so if that's something that might be of interest to you, you know, just again, visit our website and learn more. That's kind of the sort of the next wave that we all need to go to, is making sure that the internet and the digital world is as accessible as it can possibly be as well. If we move on to the next slide, I just want to kind of close with a couple of things here. I love this quote. This quote has been around since 1991. Every single time I look at it, it becomes more poignant to me. And way back in 1991, there was a woman who worked for IBM, and they were looking at accessibility issues and people with disabilities. And she wrote into this manual that they prepared the following phrase, that for people without disabilities, technology makes things easier. For people with disabilities, technology makes things possible. And all the possibilities that I have seen evolve for people with disabilities through technology since 1991 is astronomical. Every single year, we see more and more types of things that can help level the playing field for folks and enable them to do more and more. And sometimes, if we move on to the next slide, sometimes we kind of get all bogged down in thinking about the technology or getting it funded or training somebody, that we kind of lose sight of why we want to focus in on assistive technology and what assistive technology really is about. It's about participation. Like this young man, when they put in the ramp, all of a sudden he could come out of his house with his brothers and he could be part of their world out there in the community. Or on the next slide, assistive technology is about education. I talked about ATR, and I talked about how school districts borrow a lot to incorporate assistive technology into the educational curriculum. And if we can address that barrier, in this case, a vision barrier for this young woman, so that she has equal access, then she's going to go on to do greater and better things than she might have even dreamed she was going to do. Or if we move on to the next slide, it's about employment. We level the playing field in the employment arena through assistive technology for people with disabilities. And like in this picture here, we have Jim, who's blind, but he uses a screen reader, but it gives him equal access to all the information that his other colleagues were doing in their office. It just involved a little bit of technology to get him there so he could be employed and he could be a productive member and have a contribution that he was making to an employer. Or in the next slide, it's also about independent living. Assistive technology is something that goes all the way through the lifespan. And it's really, we pay a lot of attention to it when folks are younger, but it's equally as important when they're older and they want to live independently. And there are ways that they can increase their access to independence through the use of assistive technology. And then the one thing that we are, in the next slide, that we are beginning to understand more and more is the role that assistive technology provides us as we age. We all want to age with dignity and in our own homes a lot of times, and assistive technology can be a critical part of that. So really all that, those are the reasons we do assistive technology. Those are the outcomes we want, and it's part of the lifespan. And we always need to kind of keep that in mind, how critical it is to help us be successful and independent as completely and totally as we can. So the very last slide, I said that I was going to draw us to the website, which is at.mo.gov. And the easiest orientation that I can do, and hopefully answer some of the questions that were in the chat. On the left-hand side, this is our homepage, as I believe it looks right now. On the right-hand side there, you will see a list of all the programs. So I talked about ETC, I talked about the recycle and reuse centers around the state and the telecommunications access programs and ATR. And you click on any one of those and it'll take you to the related pages that will outline, if there are any steps in the application or who the program's for. And then a lot of times I suggest that people go to the ETC site because there's a series of catalogs on there. So if you're relatively new to assistive technology and you don't really know what's out there, those catalogs make sort of a nice cheat sheet where you can get familiar with a lot of the devices that are out there. And so one thing on the far right-hand side, we're a little hemmed in by the way that we set up our website, but you'll see that right below the darker blue where it says Missouri Assistive Technology, there's a lighter blue bar and it has a series of drop-down menus that come off of it. On the far right-hand side is a resources tab. And if you click there, and a lot of times people don't quite pick up on this, there is actually a funding guide. There are so many more funding sources than there used to be, but it's kind of still kind of a, if I have X and I'm a certain age, then I might qualify for this program. And we try to keep all that information up to date. And like I said, there's a funding manual there. So if that's something you're struggling with, you might take some time to get familiar with it. And I see that we are up here against 1 o'clock. So I believe I had one more slide. And I will look in the chat here. This is all my contact information. So if you're copying that down, I will quickly go through the chat. Joanne asked earlier where the centers are located, and it looked like she was referring to the reuse centers. Double check me on the website, but if I remember correctly, the locations would be Kansas City at Accessibility Medical, the Independent Living Center in Kirksville, which is Rail, in Gallatin, which is Access 2, in Hannibal, which is Neils, in St. Louis area, Paraquad, in Farmington area, Life, Cape Girardeau has a reuse center, and Springfield, I believe, are all of our current reuse centers. I might have missed one or two there. And something I forgot to say is that a lot of times we have extra durable medical equipment or maybe assistive technology we no longer need. If you're looking for some place to put it, you might consider donating it to a reuse center or putting it into the swap and shop. And then somebody had asked, Angela had asked about, and I assume you're referring to ATR. Are those for school use only, or can they take them home? That always has to be addressed between the school district and the school. But we encourage anything that is purchased through ATR to be taken home if it's going to be used for educational purposes at home. But again, that has to be addressed by the school. And Dustin, I see you're on here, and On My Own is also a demonstration center and a reuse center for us. And I had forgotten that. And then Eileen had also put I've got several people on here that I know. Fantastic. So anyway, I'm a little over the time, and Lisa, I'll hand it back over to you.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. And I am so sorry that we were locked into 30 minutes, but you did a great job getting through all those slides. We've used, on personal level with my daughter, we've used the assistive technology folks before, and I highly recommend them. And we've always recommended that they go check out the website and try to push those programs out to folks. I know there was a question too about whether it was some of the programs specifically tied to DD or if they for the elderly as well. So just
we serve all ages, all disabilities through our. Sometimes programs are going to be tied to certain age groups, like for instance, the ATR is tied to school age children, but overall. A lot of our programs and services, especially just the information, referral, and the training types of things, all ages, all disabilities.
Good stuff. So we addressed the questions, but I'll just real quickly say May 23rd will be our next Missouri DDD and U webinar. So mark your calendars again from, whoops, I'm sorry. It should be 12:30 to 1, not 12. So mistake on the slide there, 12:30 to 1 on May 23rd. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. We dropped the links in the chat. And I also just want to remind folks real quickly that you do webinars for the Missouri Open Door, the No Wrong Door project that we have. And there are a ton of videos or recorded webinars there that they can go check that out. And I highly recommend that they do. I went in and tried to see if I could collect that address for folks, see if I can drop it in the chat.
Yeah, and right, we work with the Institute for Human Development and do a monthly webinar series called Missouri Open Door Series, which is kind of a combination of their Charting the Life course and assistive technology. And if anybody's interested, actually the next one is tomorrow afternoon at 12:30. And if anybody's interested, drop me an email and I will get you hooked up with the right person there so you can go see the old ones or sign up for the forthcoming ones.
Yeah, and you're starting a new series too as well, right? Isn't there something with benefits, a new webinar series?
Yes, they have. I'm not part of that, but that would be great for people to tune into as well. Benefits are always a big issue.
Yeah, they are. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I'm sorry that we're locking out on 30 minutes now, but we've 5 minutes over. That's not bad, right? That's a lot of information to get through. I appreciate it very much. Thanks so much.
It's always a good challenge. My pleasure.
See you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.